The legal context of HRM. The important areas of HR regulation are discussed in this section. A. Equal employment opportunity protects people from unfair or inappropriate discrimination in the workplace. Anti-discrimination laws. The goal of the Canadian Human Rights Act of 1977 is to ensure that any individual who wishes to obtain a job has an equal opportunity to compete for it. The Employment Equity Act of 1986 designates four groups as employment disadvantaged: women, visible minorities, Aboriginal people, and people with disabilities. Comparable worth. This is the idea of paying equal wages for work of equal value. Sexual harassment. This includes requests for sexual favors, unwelcome sexual advances, or verbal, physical conduct of a sexual nature that creates an intimidating or hostile environment for a given employee. Employee Health and Safety Program. These programs are intended to reduce absenteeism and turnover, raise productivity, and boost morale by making jobs safer and more healthful. Retirement. Most Canadian provinces have now abolished mandatory retirement. New challenges in the changing workplace. Managing workforce diversity. Opportunities and challenges are evident due to the wide range of workers' attitudes, values, beliefs, and behaviors. Managing knowledge workers. As the importance of information-driven jobs, versus experience-driven jobs, increases, management approaches must change. Knowledge workers include occupations like computer scientists, engineers, and physical scientists. These workers prefer to work independently. Organizations must pay knowledge workers enough to keep them from moving to another company. Managing contingent workers. Contingent employees are those who work on something other than a permanent or full-time basis. This type of employment is on the rise in Canada. This is true even for top management positions. When economic times are uncertain, companies usually make greater use of contingent workers. When the economy improves, companies hire more full-time workers. Careful planning must be done so that contingent workers are brought in only when they are really needed. The costs and benefits of using contingent workers must be clearly understood. Contingent workers should be integrated as much as possible into the mainstream activities of an organization. Dealing with organized labor. A labor union is a group of individuals working together to achieve shared job-related goals such as higher pay and better working conditions. Collective bargaining is the process by which union leader and company management negotiate terms and conditions of employment for workers who are represented by the union. The development of Canadian labor unions. The labor movement was born with the Industrial Revolution, which also gave birth to the factory-based production system that carried with it enormous economic benefits. But there was also a dark side, as some owners treated their workers as simply resources to be deployed, with little or no regard for the well-being of workers. Unionism today. Union membership as a proportion of the total Canadian workforce has stagnated during the last few decades. Slightly less than one-third of workers belong to unions. Union management relations have historically been very adversarial, but recently unions have been faced with many environmental threats and they have therefore often focused on maintaining what they have rather than trying to get more from management. Some unions are even cooperating with management to make the organizations they work for more competitive. The big question regarding the future of unions is whether unions will be able to cope with the many challenges that are facing them. These include the decline of the so-called smokestack industries, where unions have traditionally been strong, employment growth in service industries, where unions have not traditionally been strong, the globalization of business, which means many jobs are outsourced to other countries, and technological change, which reduces the number of workers that are needed. The legal environment for unions in Canada. Political and legal barriers to unions existed well into the 20th century, But now various laws have been passed which protect unions and give workers the right to collectively bargain with their employers. The relevance of several pieces of legislation for unions is discussed. A. Federal legislation. The Canada Labour Code. This legislation applies to the labor practices of firms operating under the legislative authority of Parliament. 1. Fair employment practices. This section of the Canada Labour Code prohibits an employer from refusing employment on the basis of a person's race or religion. 2. Standard hours, wages, vacations, and holidays. This section deals with a variety of issues such as standard hours of work, maximum hours of work per week, overtime pay, minimum wages, equal wages for men and women doing the same jobs, vacations, general holidays, and parental leave. 3. Safety of employees. This section requires that every person running a federal work project do so in a way that will not endanger the health or safety of any employees. 4. Canada Industrial Relations Regulations. This section deals with all matters related to collective bargaining. Union organizing strategy. A union might try to organize workers when some workers in a firm are members and the union wants to represent other workers, or when it is attempting to outdo a rival union, or when it wants to increase the number of workers who belong to the union. Level of union security. The differences between the various levels of union security, closed shop, open shop, and agency shop, are discussed. Closed shop. An employer can hire only union members. Union shop. An employer can hire non-unionized workers, but they must join the union within a certain period. Agency shop. All employees for whom the union bargains must pay dues, but they are not required to join the union. Open shop. An employer may hire union or non-union workers. In the U.S., right-to-work laws have been enacted in various states. These laws stipulate that workers cannot be forced to pay union dues. Collective bargaining. Reaching agreement on the contract's terms. The collective bargaining process begins when the union is recognized as the bargaining agent for employees. Union leaders then meet with management to begin working on a new contract. Contract issues. Various issues are discussed during collective bargaining. 1. Compensation. This is the most common issue during collective bargaining. 2. Benefits. Common issues here are insurance, retirement benefits, paid holidays, working conditions, and supplementary health care. 3. Job security. Unions are increasingly concerned about this issue. 4. Other union issues. Unions may also bargain about overtime policies, rest periods, differential pay plans for shift employees, and the use of temporary workers. 5. Management rights. Management wants as much control as possible over hiring policies, work assignments, and so forth. Unions often try to limit management rights. When bargaining fails. An impasse occurs when labor and management fail to reach an agreement on a new contract. Union tactics. The union's major weapon is the strike, picket, and boycott, slow down, although unions are not permitted to strike in certain situations. Management tactics. Management can lock workers out of the business or it can hire strike breakers to replace the striking workers. They can also appeal to workers to decertify the union that represents them. Conciliation, mediation, and arbitration. In conciliation, the neutral third party helps the disputing parties to clarify the issues that are separating them. In mediation, a neutral third party tries to help the disputing parties reach agreement, while in arbitration a neutral third party imposes a settlement on the disputing parties.